Old and in the way, sisters. Laugh and learn with me, Janet.
And me, Nancy.
The Bitchin' Sisters, as we tell it like it is. The way it was back then and the mess we're in now.
We're growing old in a new world with skyrocketing costs, crazy fashions, changing norms, and I hate to remind you, with limited time left.
Yeah.
We've got some practical ideas that might work for you.
And we definitely have some opinions that you might have too.
We'll entertain you and inform you. Let's look back at how it was and ahead to what's coming.
And if you're young, maybe you can learn something from your elders. Supposedly we're wise, but we've definitely been there and done that.
Well, this week, Janet, we enjoyed the company of two friends who just became boyfriend and girlfriend. And I couldn't help notice how they were a lot like my 26-year-old grandson and his new girlfriend. Maybe it's natural that when new couples get together, they kind of emanate happiness in a way that married couples display less often. But the craziness of this couple was not that they were another young couple. They were 80 and 89.
Ooh.
I was very attentive to how they presented themselves. For instance, older guy, I'll call him.
Wait. Had they known each other for a long time?
They knew of each other. They didn't know each other. They saw each other's face at church. They sat. They didn't sit together or anything.
So they just happened to find each other?
Well, actually, they were going downstairs to a pancake breakfast after church, and he happened to say something. I can't remember. Like, would you like to go out for coffee sometime? And she immediately turned around and gave him her phone number.
Okay.
And, her husband had passed 4 or 5 years ago. And his wife had passed some time ago. So anyway, I noticed that he didn't take his woman for granted. In fact, just the opposite. Older guy opened the door for his lady at the car. Wow. He held her hand to steady her stepping up the stairs.
Was he the 89 or the 80?
He's the 89.
Okay.
And he removed her coat when they came in the house before he removed his own. And he took her coat from her so she would be hands-free. I noticed that. Plus, the entire time they were here or at the house, you could tell they got along really well. They took turns talking. They didn't finish each other's sentences.
They didn't? Yeah,
No,
true.
not yet. And they listened attentively to each other, and they weren't anxious to move on to the next subject. And no subject was off limits. I mean, several times, older guy mentioned he and lady had spoken about their pasts, and it was obvious they could bring up their deceased spouses without the other feeling jealous. So that was nice to see. And then another thing I noticed was they were touching. There was touching going on, hand-holding, a touch on the shoulder or at the back of the waist. It was very spontaneous and natural. You could tell they felt easy around each other, not apprehensive or maybe conditional. I happen to know they even touch each other's soul by sitting together in church now, a big step among their faith. And knowing the lady for many, many years now, I really think she seems younger now that she has found happiness again. Isn't that strange? Her heart seems to be uplifted with a gentleman's genuine interest in her. This relationship is starting to come together, and they're both willing to pursue it despite their age. When I asked them, I said, I want to interview you.
Did they get married?
No.
Oh,
They
okay,
just started.
okay. Oh.
And when I asked if I could interview them, the lady was a little apprehensive, and the older guy
She thought, do I really want to be on the Bitchin' Sisters
well,
podcast?
I sent them what I was idea of what I was going to say, and they were both okay with it. I didn't want to do it otherwise. And when I asked them for advice for finding happiness at an older age, older guy immediately said, "Get off the couch."
Okay.
He urges widowers to get out more, whether through friends or clubs. And lady said, it'll happen. You don't have to force it. So I think to defy convention and declare to friends and family and even to general society as a whole that you would like to have a relationship with that new person in your life at that age. It takes a lot of courage. I've witnessed these two take steps to introduce the other to their friends. That's what they were doing in our house.
Yeah.
And just this week.
So you knew the woman.
Oh, yeah.
You had known the woman.
And I knew of the man, but I didn't know him as intimately as the woman. And just this week, they went out with his family, so she got introduced to his family, and they've been received with acceptance. Like I said to the lady, your spouse died, you didn't.
That's a good way to put it.
You've been given a life to experience all you can. So get out there, as older guy said, and make the most of the time God has given you.
Is that the way you felt when your husband died? You were much, much younger.
Yeah, I was 50, and...
although a lot of people would say, well, that's it for you.
Well, I thought it was it for me. And yet, I just felt like there's more to life, and I know that his side of the family kind of wondered, because it was only about 4 months after he passed that I started to branch out a little bit. And I think that everybody, they might get it, but you really get it when you're in that predicament. Like, if Mark passes before you, you might think back on this and think, oh, now I see what Nancy was talking about, that life goes on. And I have girlfriends whose spouses have died, and they're having an entirely different life now. And I see that in my lady friend, that she put together a network of friends who were also lady widowers, and now she's branching out, and it's good to see. I mean, just think, for the last 23 years, I wouldn't have had all the experiences.
Right, if you just sat there by yourself and felt bad about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't really, personally, I can't think of any couples that I know that got together like in their, 70s or 80s, but I know a lot of couples, mostly it's the men who have died. I know lots of widows, and for some it's been good. In some ways, they've had to learn to take care of everything. They find clubs maybe that they join. I know you're in a knitting club. Other people will find a library group or a little coffee group. They do those kinds of things, but I just don't see that many couples, mostly because I don't see that many men. Yeah, and but not that I have anything against same-sex couples, but I don't see that much either. But I'm happy that it happens.
Yeah, and in the back of my mind, I think, okay, they know sorrow. They've lived through it, and they know that sorrow is in the future, and yet they still reach out, and I think that's commendable.
Well, I tried to play matchmaker with a friend of mine who I thought I know she's very intelligent. She can be lots of fun. And we invited this man we knew who was looking for someone, I think. And we had them over for dinner, and he came over, and he was all spruced up, and he brought a bottle of wine.
Woohoo!
Yeah, and she came over, and she was wearing a T-shirt inside out and backward.
Oh, no.
And I thought, this is a sign that she's not really receptive to whomever he might be. And it didn't go anywhere, which is too bad, because I think they could have been good for each other. But who knows? You can't force people. But like you said, these people were open to it.
Yes. And I think
she wasn't.
That's the main idea, is that when you are open to moving on and to new relationships, things can happen.
Well, once again, Mark and I are planning to die together. Obviously, it's either going to be a plane crash or car crash or
sleep crash.
Yeah, right. We want to do it like just go to sleep and happen to both die the same night, but I doubt that that's going to happen. Anyway, well, it was a nice little story, and we could interview them sometime. We haven't interviewed anybody on our podcast yet, but
that will change.
Yeah, the days are coming. Because we are the Bitchin' Sisters.
Janet and I come to you twice a month with new episodes. Some are funny, some are serious, some are just our crazy opinions. I hope you enjoyed our show.
Me too. It's been a pleasure. We are Nancy and Janet, the Bitchin' Sisters. Music by Hall and Sidnor.
Sometimes things aren't what they seem to be. Sometimes we see just what we want to see. Like a nearsighted monkey up a lemon tree singing, "Oh, bananas here are just for me."